Hello and welcome to Antique Dust. I am Jonathan.
And I am Rob.
And we are dusting down the glorious, lovely and fabuloso final episode of the Hardacres,
Episode
Series
6.
1.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what an episode. Oh,
Did you enjoy it?
I
first
did.
Of all?
Oh,
I
loved it.
Are you sure?
I loved it. It's the Hardacres. The plotting is just so rapid and fun and insightful and sort of good conquering evil, but also with nuances through everything.
And a sprinkling of redemption.
Oh, so many redemption arcs in this. Wasn't really a montage, so it was lacking on a montage, but I think over the entire 6
There was
episodes,
a tiny wedding prep montage, wasn't there, with servants carrying
trays
and things around. But that's a stretch.
But Hardacres, you really need to sort of
up the montage game.
Yeah, montage game needs to be upped a little bit.
We demand at least one substantial montage in every episode.
Although I think over the whole 6 episode arc, there has been 6 good quality montages.
Okay.
So, but we need at least one in every episode to like paste it out. It's like an athlete.
Yeah, we don't want to binge montages. You know, we want to pace ourselves because otherwise we will get too excited.
We will. Yes.
Anyway, enough about montages.
So montage. So this episode, there was a bit of a cliffhanger with workers going on strike and blah blah blah. Lots of
there's boardroom shenanigans,
1890s business bollocks, which doesn't actually make much sense. So we'll skip over all that very nicely.
Skip over it.
So we have Betsy's mum coming dashing to the door after Betsy reveals that she's pregnant.
So Betsy bursts into tears and spills the tea.
Yes.
About her assignation with Joe Hardacre.
And then Betsy's mother sort of arrives at Hardacre Hall and demands them to do something about it. And Mary Hardacre is appalled with her son and just says, "Well, you're going to marry her." And that was I suppose that was what was done.
Oh yes. I mean, otherwise, there could be there's dire consequences, as we might learn about slightly later on in the episode.
Yes, well, I mean, it's obviously that it's harking back. I mean, there's really, I love sort of the non-verbal sort of scripting in this because everything happened. It's really closely shot, and you can see the eye movements just between Ma and Mary, and because Ma was in that, it sounds like she was in that predicament and what have you. So it's just like, wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of meaningful glances in this episode.
Very much so. And so Ma starts off it starts the episode with Ma waking up in Mr. Gamekeeper.
So we actually start the episode with Liza. Remember, she's still recovering from her speed overdose.
Yeah, she took all that speed and didn't have a rave to go to. She was very disappointed.
Not even a Victorian rave.
I remember the whole rave scene. Like late 80s, early 90s, used to go where that sort of the acid house movement. And it was so I sort of played around with the party, but it was more fun trying to find the party because I had these little sort of smiley faces in phone boxes with a phone number, and you had to phone that number on a certain time to find out where the next clue was. So it was like a treasure hunt.
Yeah, presumably you have to be careful which number you called in the phone box, otherwise you might get French lessons from Madame
French
Fifi.
polishing.
Yes.
French polishing.
Yeah.
Oh la la, in the marigolds.
You have to be careful.
But it was so you're always at like Knutsford services at 2 a.m. and ended up in a barn in Plumley, which was very disappointing. But it was more fun trying to get to the party. So anyway, so she's wakes up and then they go to sort of Hardacre. The Hardacres sort of troop down. Ma, Mary and Liza go across to the Fitzherberts.
Yes, because they discover the cause of Liza's collapse is the said
amphetamines
and goodness knows what else in that bottle, and discover that it's from the Fitzherberts from the mother, Mother Fitzherbert.
Yes,
though in reality it was Adela, that
gave the
that
tablets,
gave the
but Adela had
tablets
got the tablets from her
from
mother,
the
to,
mother.
to remain
so she's
thin.
a pusher.
So yeah, she's a dealer. I mean, normally that's from like a blacked out Renault Clio or something.
I wouldn't know. I bow to your superior knowledge in these matters. A tube of Smarties and I was off my face.
This is like there's a really, really emotive speech from Mary Hardacre to sort of Lady Fitzherbert, where she's saying, "You are a nasty piece of work. I've been bound down and apologising for who I am, but I'm proud of who I am." And it all comes out. I come from that workhouse, and you're just so snooty towards all that. I think that was something quite hard hitting because Liza probably didn't realise. And in that one speech, she empowers both Ma and makes Ma feel appreciated because of what she's done, and Ma realises she is appreciated, and points out that Liza, she is an independent woman. She can think for herself. She can do for herself, and she's a good worker, and she's a good woman. And she doesn't even give Lady Fitzherbert any chance to comment, because ultimately everything she's saying is true, and it's a really lovely thing. She doesn't tarnish. Mary doesn't tarnish Adela under the same brush, and she turns to say, "Look, you can say you are lovely, and you can do this." And there was a nice moment. It's again with non-verbal thing with the producers on this, because when she says, "You gave these to your daughter, and your daughter gave them to my daughter," and sort of Liza sort of words, "I'm sorry," to Adela, which was a really nice, tender moment.
Yes.
And all this happens in front of Lord Fitzherbert as well. So I think sort of the reality of his marriage and his situation is sort of coming about, and his daughter doesn't want to marry Lord Snooty. So Hugo Snooty.
Hugo Snooty.
And then they literally up and leave, and
with a harumph.
It was harumph, but it was so empowering. I was just like, wow.
The chills.
I did get chills, and they were multiplying.
Wow.
So,
I'll set them up. You knock them down.
So yeah, obviously the gamekeeper is quite smitten with Ma.
Yeah. So we get some evidence of dalliance.
Well, the dalliance actually happened.
Yeah.
So in between Adela waking up, not Adela, Liza waking up. So she, because Ma's just come back from having her dalliance
in the gamekeeper's cottage.
Yeah, and they're sort of basically it's so that whole episode. There's so much that happens, and it's like it's cut with so many great, gorgeous little scenes. So Joe goes to Betsy's home and says, "Will you marry me?" She says, "We'll have a cottage on this day, and I'll look after you and the baby." So it's like an honourable thing to do, and she's agreeing. And then we see a scene of them going around a very similar cottage, looking to. We were like debating whether is this the same cottage as the gamekeeper.
I think we concluded it wasn't, and it sort of crystallised something I've been thinking through the series, that the architecture that we're seeing is a little bit unfamiliar. It's an unfamiliar style, and then of course, it's I don't know what you would call it, vernacular Irish architecture or something. I think it's about it being filmed in Ireland. That sort of just there's a slight unfamiliarity.
Yeah,
but
we've
noticed like both cottages and the church.
The church, but I mean the house looks like the standard sort of gracious sort of house, the Georgian house. But so the cottages, it seemed a bit fairy tale-y. Very cute, but identical to the gamekeeper's cottage. I thought, oh my god, they're moving the gamekeeper out. Don't worry, Mars had him. He can move in with her into her bedroom,
into the big house, and that would be a scandal.
So, but so they're showing around that, and he's being the honourable thing, but none of them are actually saying if they love each other or anything like that. And I think that's getting to Betsy,
because clearly she loves Joe.
And there was a lovely scene with Mrs. Dryden who was sensitively dealing with a maid about sort of polishing sort of the veneer of a wood. I know you don't scrub it off; you polish it and enhance.
You caress it like like a lady.
But
she didn't. No, she didn't say that. But
no. And while she relieves the maid and she does the rest of the polishing out in the hallway, and then she overhears a conversation between Betsy's mum and Mary. Saying, look, we're both going to be grandmothers, and we're here. We've got she's part of the family. She's always felt like she's part of the family. And Mrs. Dryden, it suddenly gives her a bit more of a grasp of who they are as a family and the honourable thing. And there was a really tender scene with Mrs. Dryden, with Betsy and Joe, because they're going through a list of what needs to be done to the cottage, like sort of beds, cribs, that sort of thing, wallpaper stuff. And all that sort of thing. And she noticed Betsy's getting a bit emotional, so she said, I think we need some tea, and so could you go down to the kitchen, Joe? And she sits next to him, and then she says, there's a really nice little, again, it's really emotive speech, and it's just like,
and we're sort of beginning to learn
a bit about that tender
Mrs.
sensitiveness
background,
and it's just it was just beautifully done. And she said, well, look, love will come, you will have a child together, and then you will love that child, and then that will reflect on you. And it felt like the way she was talking, something has happened to her in her past. So she's like, oh wow, this is like this sort of juicy character development. And Betsy really, really appreciates that. And they have a little bit of a pre-wedding celebration with some fizz upstairs, and they send some champagne downstairs to the staff, and the staff are saying, well, we didn't even get a tot of brandy, and they're sending these family who have taken taken us,
including us in their celebration.
And so that the butler says, well, they're lovely, they're nice, they're honourable. And Mrs. Dryden's there sipping a tea, not sipping champagne. And then she speaks to the maid and said, right, I want to put the teapots back. And it's like the china teapots and the silver teapots that have been hidden.
Yeah, and then we have Teapot Gate.
So Mrs. Dryden looks after the sort of the china, was putting that back in the cases because she's hidden it away in the house. And then, but the other maid drops the silver.
Drops a teapot.
Drops it's a silver teapot, so it's probably only a mild dent. And they get found out by Ma, and then there's a bit of an encounter between Ma, Mary, Mrs. Dryden, and the maid.
Yeah. So they initially think that there was some thievery, but then it becomes clear that it had all been hidden, either to prevent breakage, which, to be fair, Ma does have form as far as breaking teapots goes, or whether it was Mrs. Dryden was scared they were going to half-inch the silverware and flog it.
And Mrs. Dryden is promoted and said, well, this has been part of the heritage, it's been loved and everything, and it comes across as though you're not worthy, but I think she was inferring because Ma had actually taken a silver milk jug and done that in the poker game and X, Y, and Z, and Mary takes that umbrage and actually asserts herself rather than she asserts herself against Lady Fitzherbert, and now she asserts herself to Mrs. Dryden and said, right, so obviously we're not one, we'll give you a month's notice and you can go, and off she goes. And but then suddenly Mary sort of has a conversation with Betsy. And Betsy said, oh, she was really lovely, and it sounds like something happened
to her.
So that sort of gets Mary thinking, well, my Ma and I had to go to the workhouse. What did Mrs. Dryden have to do? Because there's no mention of a child.
No. And as we know from our viewing of Downton Abbey and other such dramas, we know that housekeepers were referred to as Mrs. regardless of their marital status.
Yes.
So there's pretty good chance there's no Mr. Dryden, and there never was.
So and basically Mary goes back, finds where she's
in a delightful hotel.
It was
a palatial hotel.
No, it was some
you could smell it before you
it was like if it had Scratch and Sniff TV, it would have been Scratch and Sniff. do a scratch and sniff thing on a TV? You know, doing like when 3Ds in the 80s. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, yes, they did. There was
the Radio
a couple
Times, and you sort of had to scratch it from the certain
There was a
episode.
couple of TV shows. I remember there was the ITV rip-off of Tomorrow's World did that, and you got a card in the TV Times, and when indicated, I remember you would scratch it, and what you were smelling would match what was on screen. The only one and none of it smelled even remotely like thing. The only one I remember was new mown grass. I remembered that because that actually did smell like new mown grass. The rest of it, you know, you can't really put all like sensitive chemicals through a mass production printing process and then stick them in a copy of the TV Times for a week or whatever and expect them to actually really closely match. But anyway, yes, you're right, there was smelly vision.
Yes, anyway, well, I'm glad that hasn't taken on. The TV's not pumping out smells. Especially these lots of farming shows.
Yes, we'll never watch we'd never watch All Creatures Great and Small if that was the case.
Oh no! So anyway, Mary invites. Gives her a reference and says, "Look, we really need a housekeeper, and if you don't want to use this reference to go somewhere else,
we need a housekeeper.
We need a housekeeper." So redemption arc.
So redemption
lovely,
arc. Yeah,
sort of,
we're liking that. We're
we're
liking character arcs and
tick. We like
development.
that. And we have the character arc with Sam, where this is the business bollocks things. He brings the other shareholders in, and he's given all the workers a part of his shares, so they've all got a share, so they can vote whether they're going to do like the reduced hours and not get rid of staff.
Because remember, it's 1 vote per shareholder in this company.
Yeah,
and it's not out with bounds of possibility.
No.
So what is slightly more troubling is, generally speaking, in a closed company, in a private company, one shareholder can't sell or distribute their shares without the consent of the other shareholders. So, but let's not worry about that. It's a peculiar company, so there might be peculiar rules about shareholder shares being resold. Anyway,
so they do that, and the business bollocks is also up the workers.
Up the
woo, yay!
Yeah. So the reduced hours and better pay and all the rest. It goes through with flying colours.
And we have the apology and redemption arc between Callum and Liza. Liza apologises to Callum for being
a Mardy cow,
and that is really kind of there's such a relationship going on there. There will be. You just feel it, and it's
a little bit one-sided at the moment, but I'm sure that will. I'm confident come season 2. I'm confident that there will be a season 2,
please.
And confident that we will definitely see some progression, and if not, then I demand a steward's inquiry.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so we'll hold a shareholders meeting.
Yes,
we'll issue out all the Hardacres fans shares on Hardacres, and then we can all vote for series 2.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll work?
That will work. Channel 5 will.
Maybe back in the 1890s that would have done. So hi, we're the Hardacre fans, and we love it, love. So we've all getting issued a share. So now we demand a
show of hands. Show of hands.
Outside in the car park of Channel 5.
Yeah. Wherever that is.
Isn't it in Leeds?
I have no idea.
I don't know. So we have that. We have Adela sort of wants to run away. So she has a sort of a bit of a... She likes him, likes Joe.
Yeah. I'm not convinced. I sort of think she might like the idea of him perhaps more than...
I think he's a pleasant diversion. I think he's different to everybody else.
Yes.
But
he's not a snooty toff.
He's not a snooty toff, but I don't think it's her true love.
No. There's a bit of a Lady Chatterley kind of vibe going on. Not as Lady Chatterley as Ma and the Gamekeeper, obviously. No. That's slightly more mature. Lady Chatterley's lover there going on, more mature Mellors, but yeah, I suspect that there's a bit of, she likes a bit of rough.
Yeah. So I think she likes the idea of it, and plus he has a decent amount of money, and plus he's loaded. A little bit besotted with her, but I think he's more besotted with the idea of her.
Yeah.
And then we have that sort of like, will he get married? Won't he get married? Will he? Won't he? Will he? Won't
Will he run off to America with Lady Adela and reinvent themselves?
And he's there thinking, what's going to happen in my life? And he's packed Adela's put that into his head, and he's packed his bag.
It's a very, very small bag, to be fair.
Very small bag. So maybe he's going to get the servants to send the rest of it to New York.
It's got like sort of 16 trunks packed in the stable.
A couple of under butlers, which we don't see because they're under the butler. In a positively non sort of, what's it?
Yes, all right, we get it.
So, and he's written a letter apologising to his mum and dad, and he's about to leave it, and then his dad comes in and they have a conversation, and they say, well, you've got to... and that was a really nice, sensitive father-son sort of...
Because we had a bit of feistiness between them when the pregnancy is revealed. You know, there's a lot of disappointment.
And Sam saying, "Oh, it's pre nerves." And then the next thing we have is that he's hidden the suitcase so his dad doesn't see it.
He's put his hat on the letter.
His hat on the letter, and then the next thing we see him is him walking down the drive with his suitcase. And you think, "Ooh!" Then we see a scene of Adela waiting by the walled garden. But that you don't have any meeting. And then the next scene we have it's a really fabulous scene with Eliza and Betsy in bed having a nice conversation, apologising for neglecting their friendship. So Betsy saying, apologising because I think she felt intimidated, and it was that there was nice redemption art, and then they talk about the wedding nights, and it was really kind of sweet. So you don't have to be worried about first wedding nights, do you? And then we see the lovely Joe at the door, and they have a conversation, and he says, do you love me? And
well, she poses the question, does he care whether she loves him? And he's reached the conclusion that yes, he does. He does care.
And that was just, again, a nice, sensitive moment. I mean, everything was very simply done, and it's quite stripped down. But the emotive speeches that could be a bit ploddy and everything are just jam-packed. It's like it's a fist fight. It's like boom, 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 right hook, left hook. And you're just like, wow. And even in the gentle scenes, it's very simple language that they use, but the way they've shot it and they've staged it, and it really brings out all of that emotion. And that was just so nice. And you thought, oh right, okay, that's happening. And it's just, it was just dreamy. And then we see the Fitzherberts. It's Fitzherbert Manor. So with Adela in a sort of, she's gone back home because obviously she's not buggered off to America on the cruise ship. Well, not cruise ship, which was a ferry probably, to start a new life in New York. I don't know what they'd be doing in New York, but
well, they'd be joining the cast of the Gilded Age.
Oh right, yes.
Like some upstarts from the old country.
Yeah,
in my dreams.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, but yeah, and she has a sort of says to her mother, "I don't want to marry him," and then the mother saying, "Well, you have to marry him. It's social standard.
It's the law."
And then the dad walks in and says, "No. I love my daughter, and if she doesn't want to get married to him, she doesn't need to get married to him, and I will take the social heat and social injustice and all that sort of thing, and I don't want her life to be like ours."
Stings, the sting of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's stuck with her because they're obligated, and there was another scene where they were saying, "Let's have a family conversation," and he's trying his best. And he's also his vineyard idea has been turned down.
Yeah, and I don't know if we had the last of that. I don't know. I think there might be a rapprochement between the Fitzherberts and the Hardacres.
Oh, I'm sure there will be, because I think there's probably going to be where sort of Lady Fitzherbert is going to.
She needs a redemption. She needs a redemption arc. Now.
No.
You know, she's been painted as the villain, so she needs to straighten up and fly right.
Yeah. So she doesn't get her redemption arc.
That's what I'm saying. She needs a redemption arc, so that will be part of series 2.
That's series 2. Once we keep going on, yes, we're hopefully predicting. Not why won't they announce it? But yeah, so glorious. So Adela doesn't need to get married. So yay. So Adela.
So she doesn't have to run off to New York with anyone.
No, I don't think she'd have gone on her own. She
wouldn't have.
No,
she wouldn't have gone on her
own. And then,
so don't forget that Mary has witnessed a conversation between Ma and Victor. We're on first name terms now.
Yeah,
Victor.
And
has put 2 and 2 together.
2 and 2 together, and she asks Ma, does she want to invite any of her friends? I was like, sort of her ragtag brother, so I could invite them, and she says, you're not inviting them, but there's a certain gamekeeper. And that gets Ma thinking.
Yeah, and that exchange prompts the best line in the show, which is, well, why would he want a mad baggage like you? Which made me chuckle. It did. Made me chuckle.
Yeah. So, and then Ma goes around to Victor's and says, I'm not going to change my drinking. I'm not going to change this. I'm not going to change like that. And he's there puffing his pipe with a great amusement. And it was just,
And do you want to come to a wedding?
No, +1. And then the sort of... so Mrs. Dryden's come back and she's taken over the flowers and comes with the flowers, and Ma is aghast that has happened, and Mary just says, well, thank you very much for that, Mrs. Dryden, and sort of welcome back sort of thing. And it's sort of like, and it's sort of, they've got their new sort of
a respect, a mutual. Let's not push it. Let's just describe it as a mutual respect.
Yeah. So, but you just think, there's more stories to be told. There's more. There's more to be said. I mean, the books focus on the gentleman, but we don't really get a great deal.
And speaking of the gentleman,
Harry returns.
Yeah, Harry's back! Yay! So Ma goes off with a mysterious telegram to send, and they're having their champagne reception, and who walks in the door?
Is Harry. So apparently there's a wedding and a baby,
but not
necessarily in that order.
Much to Joe's embarrassment. And then we get a conversation about how things are going at school, and everything is going marvelously.
I've got friends, and you just think,
and then we can see that we know that expression, and things aren't.
So the story,
as rosy.
I just feel that I think they should have had more for Harry to do rather than just ship him off to school on episode 3.
Yeah, I get that, but what I will say, I will go into my writer defense mode, if you like, or is that there are quite a lot of characters and there's quite a lot of story. So, at some point you have to kind of go, we can't do everyone justice. So, and of course there's a series 2 that can pick up on
you keep mentioning about this mythical series 2. They haven't announced it yet. I'm very upset.
I watched that DVD, The Secret, so I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out to the universe with full confidence, and I'm sure the universe will provide. The universe will provide. So if not, I will look extremely stupid. So universe, just get it sorted.
I'm gurning at the microphone here.
Oh, I thought that was just your normal expression.
Oh, shush. But we don't see the wedding. And
you can't have it all, Jonathan. You can't have it all.
And they do things about face, but then again, everything else is about face, where you've got Callum sort of playing around with his camera and taking a picture of them before they go to the wedding. So we've got the bride, the groom, the Hardacres, and it was very, very lovely done. But so when we were speaking with Julie Graham a couple of weeks ago, she was saying it's done on a really sort of low budget. So potentially that's why, because all the set pieces are done and it looks really lovely in the period things, but we don't get many sets. So it's like a play.
Yeah. That sort of that style of production. I think when everything is done on location, where there's no studio work. That's quite a modern way to make television. That's why TV studios around the country are closing at a pace, because there just isn't the same demand for TV studios, because technology can mean that
you haven't got wielding cameras.
Exactly,
and things like
that location filming is much easier than it used to be, and cheaper as well. It's much cheaper to hire a hall for a week than it is to hire a TV studio and then build all the sets and so on. Because if everything is there, or mostly, or there's a bit of set dressing involved, that's going to be a lot cheaper than the alternative.
Yeah. So, but it was done very well. But it made you want more. And this is sort of it runs along at such a rollicking pace. So, yeah, it was such a very delicious episode, and there's so many things. It didn't leave on a cliffhanger. So, if this is the one and only series, it's still good. And you can still think about those characters, and you can think where they could go next. It didn't actually leave on a cliffhanger. Was like what with those the next series that was done by the Howard's Way creator,
Trainer.
That went for 2 series. It was a high budget one, and it ended on a cliffhanger of a whodunit. Yeah, and then it didn't get picked up.
Yeah, which is always a risk. It's always a risk. But yeah, I think. We can say that there was a satisfactory conclusion for all the characters. Clearly, there was some untapped idea or burgeoning ideas that could bridge into another series. But we can be satisfied. Well, we can be relatively satisfied if. This is all we get.
I want more.
Let's put it out to the universe. Let's put it out there.
Yeah, putting it out there.
Sorry, the cow wandered into.
Shut up. So we were scheduled to have Claire Cooper, who plays Mary Hardacre. Unfortunately, due to some schedule conflicts on our end, nothing to do with the lovely Claire Cooper.
No problem.
But unfortunately, we weren't able to manage to get the slot that we had available, or that she had available. But we will likely pick up with her. So hopefully, if we can get a few other cast members when it gets announced. If it gets announced for Series 2, maybe we could potentially get a few of the lovely actors, because we have spoken with a few of them. Some of them have been on the show, some of them haven't been on our little show yet. But maybe if we could actually potentially have, I'm sure we can do it on Zoom or something, where we can bring them in, and then we can ask how excited they are with the announcement of Series 2.
You don't need to give away all the questions, but it won't come as a surprise.
No, but once we do get an announcement of Series 2, what we'll do, we've got and you can get hold of us on all social media platforms at Antique Dust. But we have got a Facebook, Hardacre fans. And the very much engagement on there is very huge.
It's very, very engaged.
So once we have confirmation that season 2 is going to happen,
we will attempt to do one of the most logistically difficult things that's possible
to get all the actors
even to
available.
Imagine doing, but we're up for it.
Yeah,
we're up for it.
So we say if we can get everyone onto Zoom to ask for their comments and where they think their characters are going to go, so have sort of a nice meaty podcast where people can tune in, but the fans can actually ask the questions, and we can ask those questions and seeing what the responses are.
Wow.
But we have spoken with the potential plot lines of what would happen in Series 2. And there are some really cool,
really, really interesting
ideas. Really.
And as they say, we could tell you, but we'd have to kill you.
Yes. So, non-disclosure agreement.
Absolutely.
But... it's just great. I mean, there's now a massive Hardacre gap in my life. So I suppose I'm going to have to make do with the All Creatures Great and Small Christmas special.
How did All Creatures Great and Small be relegated to make do?
Well, I
do apologise.
I do love. I love All Creatures Great and Small. I love Call the Midwife. So I will have to sort of re-watch Call the Midwife. We actually watched a couple of the first episodes.
And surprisingly fresh, actually.
Yeah, really good.
And so many nuns. I was so surprised.
There were so many nuns.
Because in the more recent series, there's pardon this pun, there's none. But back then, there was more nuns than they knew what to do with in Nonata's house.
Yeah. So,
but anyway, that's for another day.
That's another one. So, dear listeners, what did you think of the very last episode? We would love to hear your comments and feelings and what have you, and where do you think it should go? We'd just love to know, because then we can say when Series 2, fingers crossed, everything crossed, gets announced, then we will be able to ask those questions and get the excitement going. But they have all got contracts to sign up for all the actors have been signed up, so they're committed to making Series 2. So we're not going to lose any of the fabulous actors, and there doesn't seem to be anyone that's going to be aging out of the role.
No.
So, which is fabulous. Because I think some of the actors have actually been aged up, haven't they?
I wouldn't like I wouldn't like to enter into any speculation about that, because it might prove to be terribly offensive.
Okay, we won't go any further than that. Anyway, so this is me, Jonathan, signing off.
And this is me, Rob, saying goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye.